Hi everybody, Evan here, and welcome to JavaScript. This is going to be a big shift in the material you guys are studying and learning, and we've got a lot to cover this week. This is going to be a pretty heavy week. There's going to be a lot of material that might feel a little dry or esoteric, but I got to ask you guys to try to stick with me. After this, it'll get a lot more exciting. But this is that 1 week where we really need to cover the foundations of JavaScript and just get it out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to try to move a little bit quickly, but we're going to start with getting set up for JavaScript. You can see here I have an empty template. I have nothing attached to my index.html except my main.css style sheet. And that's just to keep everything as simple as possible at this point. By now you may have a link for Font Awesome, a link for animate.css, you may have all your Bootstrap links, and that's completely fine. But in my case, I've eliminated everything that is not directly relevant to setting up for JavaScript, specifically so I can be as clear as possible. Now, when we write JavaScript, much like when we write CSS, we write it in a separate external file. So we write our CSS in our main.css file in our CSS folder, right? Well, where you typically want to write your JavaScript is going to be in a main.js file in a JS folder. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and create that. I'm using Sublime. You may be using Atom or another text editor. It's all going to be the same. But what I'm going to do is right-click on my project folder and select New Folder. I'm going to type the name of that folder, JS. Hit Enter. Then I'm going to right-click on my JS folder and select New File. I'm going to hit Control-S or Command-S if you're on a Mac to save. And I'm going to save it as main.js. And there we go. We have our JavaScript file ready to go. Let's go ahead and test to see if it's working. Before we do that, though, we have to actually connect it to our index.html. So with CSS, we use this link tag to connect our style sheet. But JavaScript requires something a little different. JavaScript is going to require what's called a script tag. And a script tag has an opening and closing tag, whereas link only has opening. It's called a void element, but don't worry about that. A script tag has both an opening and a closing script tag. So if you run into issues with a script, make sure it's got a closing script tag. Make sure you didn't forget to add that. And inside the opening script tag, we're going to write type equals text / JavaScript. And this tells the browser how to read what we're going to include in this script, just like rel equals style sheet does for our link tag to CSS. And after type, we're going to write src for source. And this is going to be the file path that leads to our main.js file. It's going to be JS, go into the JS folder, / main.js. Okay? So things to remember about a script. Script tags always have a closing tag, unlike links. Script tags require a source attribute, in contrast to link tags, which require an href. Okay, so those are the two main differences between a link and a script. We use links for style sheets or anything that ends in .css, and we use scripts for JavaScript files, anything that ends in .js. Okay. Last thing you need to know about a script is we want our JavaScript to be the very last thing to load on our page. The reason for that is if there's ever a problem in our JavaScript, what's going to happen is the browser will throw an error and everything will halt. Everything will stop. It will stop loading anything after it. It will stop running the code. And so we want it to be the very last thing to load so that in case there is an error, all the HTML that we might write above it, which actually constitutes our web page, will still render. If this script were in our head and it threw an error for any reason, we would see nothing load in our page. So it is best practice to keep the script for your main.js custom script down at the very, very bottom of your body element, just before the closing body tag. And we always write our JavaScript in an external main.js file. There may be times when you watch videos or tutorials where you will see someone demonstrate some JavaScript inside the HTML. Etc., etc., etc. You can totally do that. That is perfectly fine for testing and for development purposes, but we discourage it because it is not best practice. And writing your JavaScript in an external file makes it both easier to read and easier to maintain. Okay, so always write your JavaScript in an external file.